The following production is part of the Play Some Video Games podcast network.
Welcome to Board with Video Games, the gaming podcast that strives for the right balance of coverage for games you play on your table and on your television. You can think of us as the counterbalance and Sensei's divining top of gaming podcasts. We're a proud member of the PSVG Podcast Network and thrilled to be part of the Dice Tower Network as well. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle, and joining me on this co-op adventure, the guy who counters all of my spells. Josh, how are you doing this evening?
That sounds like a bad thing, right?
I mean, it depends on how you like to play games, I guess.
I am doing just swell, Kyle. How are you?
You know, I'm not doing too bad at all. Are you familiar with counterbalance and Sensei's divining top?
No.
Okay. I'm not going to go into the inner workings of it, but it's kind of a cool thing that if you're the person playing it.
I take your word for it. It sounds cool and overwhelming. Just
it's not a cool
3 words.
Yeah, it's not a cool thing if you're the person playing against it. That's not a lot of fun. That's for sure. Last time we recorded a podcast, it was very hot where you were.
Yeah, it was.
Is it still very hot where you are?
No, it's not. But it's going to be again next week.
You sound so sad about that.
I just kind of wish everything would pick something and stay in that lane. We have this warm weather coming up from the hurricane. So It's going to get up into the 80s again, but, you know, we've been resting comfortably in the 60s, and that's going away. I felt nice being cold this morning in my house. I was like, oh, I'm really cold. This is nice. I can just warm myself up with a blanket. Easy. Mm-hmm. and then it's going to be in the 80s again, and probably very muggy again.
So this weekend, dear listener, we record our first actual episode of Board with Everything.
We do.
Josh, are you set with your list of topics? Do you have this just amazing list of things that are going to spur excellent, amazing conversation? Are you ready for this?
Well, Kyle, I have some things. I don't know where they range from basic to complex to controversial or boring or who knows what, but I got some ideas, but we'll see. You know, remember how this idea was born?
I do.
No script, just off the cuff. So, we'll see. Maybe I don't even have a list, and I'm just going to have something come up off the top of my head.
Well, that's fine, because I'll never know, because I don't get to see your list.
You'll have no clue.
For all I know, you won't have one, and you're just saying you do. Or vice versa, you'll pull a trickery and be like, no, I don't have anything, and then you come out with all these amazing topics
with facts
that you thought long and hard about. I will say, though, I think as time has gone on, there's become more and more things that are probably relevant for us to talk about. But, dear listener, if you are a Patreon subscriber, that first episode of Board with Everything will be coming to you early next week, so be on the lookout for that. But enough with all of these things. Let's get on to the housekeeping so we can jump into our, what I think will be a pretty packed show. So, as always, thanks so much for joining us this week. If you have any feedback, questions, suggested topics, hit us up at BoardWithVG on Twitter, or check out all of the amazing things over on the Instagram, also BoardWithVG. So we are a proud part of the Play Some Video Games podcast network, and PSVG is on Patreon. We are absolutely thrilled with the support you have given us there thus far, and if you'd like to monetarily support what we do there, you can find us there at patreon.com/PSVG. But the most important thing is just that you listen and maybe share our podcast with someone else who you think might enjoy what we do. We're also a member of the Dice Tower Podcast Network, so if you enjoy our conversations about board games and would like to dive deeper into that world, we encourage you to check out the Dice Tower Podcast as well as all the other members of the network. No matter what type of board games you enjoy, there's a podcast on the network that is right for you. So enough with all the housekeeping. Josh, it is Iello September.
Yeah.
So we did say we were going to talk about a little game about bunnies. But
yes.
We're going to push that back a week because I've only played Bunny Kingdom once, and I would like to play it a few more times. And it doesn't quite sound like you had a chance to get it to the table yet.
That's correct. So full disclosure, life got in the way, as it does. So the big plan was to play Bunny Kingdom. Kyle and I had talked about it. We were both going to talk about it today. So hopefully we'll be able to talk about it next week, because I'm going to do my darndest to make sure we get it to the table this weekend. But, unfortunately, I know we have people who can sympathize with just not being able to get games to the table. I got one board game to the table, and it was because I was at a cookout, and cook-in, because we did have rain, and it just happened to be because they wanted to play a quick game. So, unfortunately, I didn't get a game to the table. However, I did pick a game that I saw that's also on Kyle's list. So, I think we can probably both talk about this together. And it's kind of fitting the season encroaching on us.
It is. And I'm glad you picked this game, because I really want a follow-up to. And I just think it kind of came out and people thought it was cool, and we really haven't gotten much with it since. And I would love a follow-up to this game, that is for sure.
Well, good news, there's an expansion coming out.
Well, it's not here yet.
But it's I think we're on the I think it's coming out within the month. I believe, if I didn't see posts incorrectly.
I thought it was 2020.
Was it?
I could be wrong.
No, it's probably me who's wrong. But the game we are talking about, as you hear me type it into my search browser, is The Big Book of Madness. And then I'll just click on expansion, so you don't have to hear me type that out. So, The Big Book of Madness. The Fifth Element is the expansion. It is going for, you're right on the nose, Kyle, to February 2020.
There we go.
So it's coming. I thought it was coming sooner. However, that's what I would like to talk to you about, because I believe this has come up in previous, I think when we did like spooky games, but I don't know how in depth we've gotten on this game. I would like to tell you, this is a game that I've played at 2 players and 4 players.
Mm-hmm.
And we have never beaten it. And we don't know what we're doing wrong.
Interesting.
It comes across to us as very difficult.
It is challenging, I agree.
But every time I've engaged board game groups on this, I am, sometimes people literally spelling it out, I've been told that I'm either stupid or don't know how to play board games. And I'm wondering why. Because everyone else seems to have no problem beating this game, so when I reply, you must be doing something wrong, and inadvertently cheating, because this game is very hard, I feel this constant push and pull on this game.
I think that this game is deceptively challenging, because when you look at the art of the game, and when you hear the concept of the game, it very much, in a lot of ways, is Harry Potter, right? This is a Harry Potter game without the license. But when you hear that and you think of that, and you think of other games that have come out since this game, like in the Harry Potter world and all that good stuff, it seems like this game should be pretty straightforward. It's a cooperative game, like this should be something that you should be able to tackle the monsters in the Big Book of Madness and get that book successfully closed. But this game is tough. This is not an easy cooperative deck building game at all.
Yeah, for sure. So let's set it up a little bit. Okay, so you start the game off by setting up the Big Book of Madness itself, which is one of the first cool, unique things about this game. At least at the time. I'm not sure if anyone else has copied it since then. But basically you have the game board, and what you're doing is the rules will tell you based on I think player count. It changes based on pages. Mm-hmm. But you're shuffling in random cards, but you always have a cover and a back that are specific cards, and you're shuffling in boss cards, and then you're essentially, when you open the book, it's creating a boss and a win or lose effects from that boss. Each boss has elements or elemental symbols that are its weakness, and that's your goal is to use your we'll call it, I believe they're students, right? You use your your student in this wizardry spelly school, whatever you want to call it, and you're using your students' abilities in conjunction with your co-students, because it is cooperative, to play cards that are in your hand to defeat said bosses. Each player, they have their own deck, and they also have their own special abilities, which allow you to play off that. And I think one of the things we were doing wrong was when we defeated monsters, we weren't taking the bonus ability every time, the bonus spell cards. Which when you start the game, you start off with very basic low-level spells, and as you play, you can essentially level up your cards or enhance your deck to be more powerful for when you're attacking these monsters. But they do fight back. And they typically cause curses. And I'm trying to remember, there's a game that has a similar element. When you run out of a deck, it's essentially the end of the game for you. But if you run out of... it's just a cursed card, the one with the girl floating on the chain. I'm trying to remember the name of the card.
I can't remember. I know which one you're talking about, but I don't remember the name of it.
I think it might just be called the cursed card. But essentially, if you run out of this deck, you also lose the game. There's other ways to lose the game. You also don't have to defeat all the monsters, if I remember correctly. You just have to defeat specific ones to continue forward, to get to the boss.
Right.
Because you can survive a loss. However, you cannot survive every loss, as you are slowly dwindling and approaching what I would consider kind of like how epidemics work in Pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And if you draw too many, you lose. It has a cool little book to play, turn marker, which I thought was pretty cool. The components are great. The art on the monster cards are very nice to look at. Each player has their own little player board where they can keep their spells, and you're also getting these enhancements that give you more than just spells. That give you like draw cards and things like that as you play through. So it's kind of like it's basic. It's not basic. It's a deck builder with a unique theme, and that is monster slaying.
Right. This game, like you said, I do think it is a hard game, but I think that it really is. There's a lot of unique and different ways that you can approach it. And I think similar, there's one way to win, but a lot of different ways to lose. So it makes sure that you have to keep track of all of the things that are going on. The one thing you're talking about, I think, is the madness stack.
Thank you.
I think it's technically what it's called.
Yes.
Big Book of Madness. So if you run out of madness cards, you lose. If all players get eliminated, because there is individual player elimination, you lose. You can quote unquote lose to bosses or enemies during going through the book, but if you lose to the last boss, you lose. So there's all these things you're trying to keep track of. You're trying to build up your deck, trying to make sure that you can handle the curses that come out when the page is flipped. Because, when you get to the last pages of the book, you have 5 curses sometimes that are going to, and you have 5 turns to get rid of them basically, and then also defeat, the big bad that has been flipped over. So this game is just, I think, so darn much fun. And yes, you kind of talked about how there is a expansion coming out early next year. This game came out back in 2015, I think.
2015.
So it's been 5 years. There's been a promo card here or there, but we really haven't had anything else for this game since that time. So this is a game that I think we talked about when we first started the show more often. But gosh darn it, if this isn't a great game, and if you can find it, it's pretty inexpensive. I think you can probably get it for about $30 these days.
Yep.
If you have a group of people who like a challenging and who like challenging games and cooperative games, I think this is a really easy recommend. The component quality is good. The only thing I don't like is they have those darn little cards.
Yeah, they're very small.
Yeah, I don't like little cards. I never have. That's the one thing that kind of bothers me. But otherwise, the production of this game is great. The art is amazing. Like you said, that bookmarker, for whatever reason, is very cool.
It's very cool.
I don't know why it's such a cool piece, but I really like it. Big Book of Madness, I think it's a super easy recommend, and a game I want to get back to the table much more often than I have, because it's kind of fallen off the wayside, but I don't know why, because it is an excellent, excellent game.
I agree, and yeah, I definitely need to play this more, because I need to at least to win once, which would be super great. One thing I didn't mention, which I thought was pretty cool, was they have all these spells that are basically like the elements, fire, wind, water, earth. But when you can purchase these spells, and essentially each spell that's in that element, it starts with the lowest power in that spell, and it goes up to 3 levels. So like your spell increasingly gets stronger. So it's not necessarily even just like drafting new cards. It's focusing on like an ability and drafting, like, and purchasing that new spell, which I really like that aspect to it as well.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. So it's interesting too. If you look on Board Game Geek, some important things to note. The weight of this game is a 2.71, which for ostensibly a deck building game is pretty darn high.
Yeah.
That is a pretty heavy weight for a deck building game. Also, the age on it is 12 plus, according to the community. So, which is pretty old, really. That's what the game recommends as well, is 12 plus, and I think that's pretty spot on. And, and even when we talk about games for like 10 plus, you tend to see some pretty decent complexity built in. But anytime you hit that 12 plus or 14 plus, you know that these games are actually going to be quite a bit more complicated than other games we're seeing. So, yeah, I'm really excited for the expansion for this. I wish it was coming a little sooner. But honestly, with the number of games I received in my home in the last week and a half, I'm kind of okay it's not, because I don't know that I'm going to be allowed to buy any more games, because I also just got my shipping notification for Tapestry.
Nice.
So, no big deal. No big deal.
I'll just sit here with FOMO for everything that you have.
Yeah, I gotta play it though, because Tapestry's here.
That's true.
And Machikoro Legacy's got to get played, which that probably won't get played till the holidays. And there's just a lot to get done. Tussie Mussie's on its way. We got the Hunger Games game that just came out.
Yes, we did.
The new Century version with golems for the second game, Eastern Mountains.
I just got like 4 shipping notifications from Kickstarter, so I do have some stuff coming in as well.
So there you go. See, so much. Oh, and for you, Josh, and also for dear listener, my Barnes & Noble running a big clearance sale right now. So I got Ex Libris for $20.
No.
$20.
You did? Do they have extra copies?
They had one more. If you want me to go back, I could get it and ship it to you.
Yeah, I'll pay the shipping.
Yeah, they had Ex Libris for $20.
We've been I've been eyeing that forever, and it's still like $60 at my FLGS. And
so yeah, I will go back tomorrow if I have time and see if I can snag you that copy.
That would be awesome if you could do that.
But yes, dear listener as well, go check out your Barnes & Noble. According to the person I talked to at mine, they cleared off a big section of a big group of their game shelves, and over the next couple of weeks they're going to slowly kind of be putting stuff out in clearance. So I don't know if every store did that or that's just the thing my store is doing, but yeah, a lot. Captain Sonar was there, Custom Heroes was there. They had a lot of things that were in clearance that I was kind of surprised by, so
Nice.
Might be worth a check out. Anything else you want to say about the Big Book of Madness?
No.
Okay.
No.
Excellent. The other game I'm going to talk about briefly, still sticking with Iello September here, is a classic game that we've mentioned a lot in passing on this show. It has been on a number of lists that we have done. And this is definitely going to be an easier game, and a game I'm sure Josh has won.
Yes, multiple times.
Multiple times. But I'm going to throw it out there because I still think this is probably one of the best versions of any game like this, and that is King of Tokyo. There is King of New York, which if that's kind of your thing, that's cool. I prefer still King of Tokyo, the original, but with the power-up pack that gives all of the monsters their unique abilities. The one thing, if you're not familiar with the game, King of Tokyo, pretty straightforward Yahtzee-style game where you are monsters vying for control of Tokyo. One of you is quote-unquote in the center, maybe two, depending on how many players you have. And then everyone else is kind of attacking you, and if you're in the center, you're attacking everyone else. You roll your 6 die, and then over the next couple turns, you get a couple more rolls if you'd like to, hey, if you have, 3 victory points and energy, a heal, and attack, maybe you keep those victory points and you re-roll your energy, heal, and attack to try to get more victory points, or whatever you want to do for your strategy. So there's a little bit of luck built in there, depending on how you roll the dice. But there's also obviously a little bit of strategy in choosing what you want to do and how you want to proceed. How long do you want to stay in Tokyo because you're getting damage from everyone? Do you want to risk attacking and doing the damage to the person and having them be just bouncing out and making you go into Tokyo? How much energy do you want to build up? How many cards do you want to invest in if you get the expansions that have all of that stuff? Do you ever play without the power-up expansion? Do you have the power-up expansion?
Yeah, I do. I have that, and I have the Halloween expansion.
I also have the Halloween one. Yep.
But, so this was a game that I really enjoyed that I sent over to Kevin Austin a while ago when he was trying to get his daughters into board games, because, King of Tokyo is real easy to recommend, I think, to anybody. It's a really good entry-level game. But even serious gamers can play this game because it offers enough complexity to it that it's not just I think depending on what kind of game you are, it could be considered like a filler game, but I don't want to just relegate it to that. So I just think it's kind of open for any gamer. But yeah, I think the power up expansion is necessary, and then I think if you can get characters without going crazy, like the pandas one as well, they just add more depth and then extra cards, which is nice, because you're not just getting a new character, you're also getting some extra cards to add to that deck.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of that preeminent game of, it's great with families, but it's also great just with a bunch of gamers that if you're looking to start an evening or wind down an evening, this is a game where you can just have, especially if you're someone who enjoys having an adult beverage or two, sitting around at the end of the night, this game is really great for that. There's a ton of player interaction. Having table talk makes the game so much more fun. Or if you want to spend, a Saturday afternoon with the family, this game fits both of those things, I think, equally well.
Yep.
So I really think if you're creating a game collection, or if you're just kind of trying to decide how to build out, if you have just a handful of games and you want to build something out, I personally think King of Tokyo is almost a must-own. I think this is one of those games that it works great for gamers, works great for new people. It fits so many different categories of people you might play games with, and it's just quality and fun. I think personally, this is kind of one of those must-have in your collection type of games when you start building your collection out. Would you agree or do you disagree?
I agree. The only thing I would add is that I've heard King of New York is decent competition for it, and I haven't played King of New York, so I don't know if it's a game that maybe is better or worse, or if I until I play King of New York, I'm not sure which of the two, or if I would want both in my collection. I don't know if it's different enough to have both, but as far as King of Tokyo goes, like I said, I wouldn't have given it to Kevin trying to get people into gaming if I didn't think it was a great game. So yeah, definitely happy to have it in the collection.
Yeah, I believe they just kind of recently. When did the new edition come out?
It was probably last year when they removed a character and added a new one.
Yeah, so there is the new edition. I have the old one.
Yeah, me too.
But, like I said, either way, I think definitely a great game. I think King of New York is pretty similar. There are some things with destroying buildings and things like that. There's a touch more complexity to King of New York, which I don't think is good or bad. It just makes the game a little bit different. Personally, for me, I still prefer King of Tokyo, but that's just because of the place the game fits in my gaming pantheon and the type of games I play. It just fits. King of Tokyo has a better fit for me than King of New York does.
Sure.
So, all right. Anything else you want to say about that?
No, play it. It's not expensive. If you can get it, get your hands.
Yeah, another $35 game that you probably can track down. Iello does a really good job of that, of having very overall pretty affordable games that are high production value, great artwork, and aren't going to break your bank. So definitely a thing that they're well known for. So next week we will continue Iello September.
Yes.
Talking about Bunny Kingdom. Might get another game or two in there. I have another one or two I could still potentially play. Just to kind of wrap things up for Iello September. But Josh, outside of that, have you been playing any other board games or anything else on your tabletop?
Well, like I said, we did get one game to the table. I was pushing for Bunny Kingdom with the group, but people didn't want. Well, they said they didn't want to learn a new game, and then we learned a new game. But I think it was a little less complex. So we played Deadwood 1876. If you are not familiar, this is in a trilogy of games. And I have it right here, and I want to pull it out so I can tell you all about it. But they started with Salem, then they did Deadwood, and then they did Tortuga, 1667. Actually, it was probably Tortuga and then Deadwood. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's in a case that looks like a book. I didn't watch the show Deadwood. Okay, so I guess, at a disadvantage for backstory. Because apparently the characters from Deadwood are the characters you play in the game. Mm-hmm. So, everyone plays a character. We played, I want to say five-player game. And you are essentially robbing safes and shooting people. And
okay.
It's a pretty interesting game. So it does play relatively quick. You play over a series of rounds. And when you start the game, everyone starts the game with 2 safes in front of them. Mm-hmm. And they have some things that are valuable, like gold. Some things that are not valuable, like rats. And some things that help with endgame, which is... I want to say they're badges. They're like the equivalent of trophies, like silver, gold, copper badges. And at the end of the round, it's kind of like a shootout but you're not shooting people. You are having the ability to gain more items. And at the end of the round, you basically get extra turns, depending on the badges you have. And it goes in order sequentially. So the lowest... mineral, it goes first and moves all the way up to the last place person. When you play your turn, you can do one of 2 things. You can either, you start with a hand of cards, and they're weapons. Each weapon has a die on it, and that's the die you roll for that weapon. Mm-hmm. So, you can attack a person and try to wound them and then kill them, or you can attack them and try to steal their safe, and essentially, you're just... rolling dice to get the higher die to take the safe. You're not like physically attacking the person. So you play a card either in front of a safe or on a person, and the safes are all face down. When the game starts, you're getting 2 cards, you're keeping one, and then you're passing one to the left. And someone will pass you a card. Of course, you'll have your 2 cards. You can shuffle them, but then you put them face down in front of you. So nobody really knows what the cards are in front of you. There are some cards that allow you to peek at someone's cards, which can be helpful. And then, so let's say I'm the first player, so I can decide to attack someone or go for a save. Why wouldn't you go for a save on the first turn? So I just, either you pick someone of your friends who it's always funny to pick on, or you just kind of take a shot in the dark.
Are you the person who's always fun to pick on?
No, well, I typically pick on people, but like in games like Secret Hitler or dead of winter, I'm always called to the traitor or the fascist, if you will.
Okay.
So if I just actually I messed up the first time we did it because I thought the die rolls were reversed. So the die I played, I thought was the best die because each die has a probability higher or lower of rolling a blank on the die.
Mm-hmm.
So the yellow die, which I thought was the best, was actually the worst, and the black die is the best. So you also have abilities on cards too. So if you decide on the top of the card is an attack and on the bottom of the card is an item. So you can do one of two things. You can attack or you can use the ability of that card. So if you attack, I picked a safe, put my gun in front of the safe, and then the person whose safe I'm trying to take, they also get to play a card. Mm-hmm. And then all you do is you roll your die. However, when you start the game, you start in 3 different locations. And actually, I'm remembering there were 6 of us now, not 5. You are randomly put into a location with someone else. You are now considered like partners if you're in that area. Some cards let you move to other spaces. Mm-hmm. In a 6-player game, you can only have a maximum of 3 people in one spot.
Okay.
So if you try to move somewhere else, you can kick someone else out of that location. Mm-hmm. So what would happen is if, say, me and you were in the same space and I was attacking the listener's safe, and I played my yellow die gun on accident, and they played a black die gun, which is the highest. Mm-hmm. You may have a card in your hand called a holster, which actually gives me a die of whatever that holster is. It can be anywhere from yellow, orange, green, red, and black, I think are the colors, which will allow me to roll extra dice. And that gives me, the advantage. So then I would take that card if I won it, and then I would shuffle it into my cards and then put them back down however I want. If I lose, nothing happens. I just lose my turn. That's the end of the turn. And the game continues for 3 rounds. After the 3rd round is over, you go into the overtime thing where you are turning your cards over. Oh, wait, sorry, you don't turn your cards over yet. So this is what happened. It was pretty funny. My friend's wife went second because she had the second lowest badge. On her turn, she attacked someone safe, and she got the next highest badge. So she got to go again. And then on that turn, she attacked me, which had the next highest badge. So she then got to go again after that.
Wow.
Yeah. She got very lucky, because I think my other card was like gold, which would have been nice anyways. And then at the end of the game, you add up your gold and your victory points, and that's how you determine the winner. It was actually very fun. I didn't know what to expect when we started. It seemed like it was going to be bad, to be totally honest with you, when the rules are being read. And it seemed confusing. That could be the rules reader's mistake or me not listening or something. But yeah, I had a lot of fun, and it actually made me really want to play Tortuga now and see if it's just as fun or not.
Very cool. Very, very cool. And the name one more time?
The name of that game was Deadwood 1876.
Very awesome. So I did something this weekend, Josh, that I didn't know if it would ever happen again. I met up with some old acquaintances that I used to work with who were the people who initially introduced me to Warhammer. And we played Warhammer.
Wow. That's crazy.
Now, let me tell you a couple things. Number 1, we played Warhammer Fantasy, which I don't believe technically exists anymore. Because I believe it's now Warhammer Age of Sigmar is kind of what replaced Warhammer Fantasy back in 2012, 2010, 2011, something like that. So I think that is kind of now where Warhammer Fantasy sits is in Age of Sigmar. So we were playing old school. None of these rules I think really apply anymore. None of the factions are the same anymore. Really old school stuff. Here's what I can tell you about playing Warhammer again for the first time in well over 5 years. Number 1, Warhammer is cool. Whatever you might think about a miniatures game like that, it is very, very cool. Number 2, Warhammer is very complex. and not something you can play once every 6 years or so and have any chance at all of hoping to do anything remotely well. Number 3, Warhammer is really, really, really long, especially when you haven't played it in years and years and years, and you have to look everything up. So they were good sports. They helped me a lot. We were kind of playing a little bit of a skirmish / campaign thing that they had been working on. I was playing some High Elves again, which is what I played back when I actually bought some pieces and started painting and all of that good stuff. But I think that the Warhammer is one of those games that if you play it, it is the thing you play. And you don't probably play too much else. You might dabble in other things, but Warhammer is kind of your thing. And I think that's the biggest reason I've struggled with it, is I don't think it's a game that can be played casually. But on the plus side, I think they're 100% okay with that. That is what it is. That is the game. That is the audience for that game. But it's really fun to line a whole bunch of cool looking creatures up on a table and roll a whole bunch of dice and see what happens. It's fun. It's cool. It's really neat when you have something that's a very low % chance of hitting hit, and it completely messes up the plan the other person had because they've played the game a lot and have plans. So there was a part of me, a small part of me, that after playing Warhammer again for the first time in forever, made me say, man, I really want to play a game like this regularly. But it was a small part of me, because I think I would want to get good at it, and I'd spend way too much money on it. But my goodness, I get it. I understand why people love these games. I understand why, Games Workshop has standalone stores that just sell Warhammer stuff. Granted, I think 40K is probably more popular. It's just never quite been my aesthetic or the thing I've gotten into. But, dear listener, if you have a friend, an acquaintance, a friendly local gaming store that has regular Warhammer activities, which they probably do, I would encourage you to see if you can make a friend or two and at least experience what is Warhammer, because the scale of it, the number of, each miniature or each unit has a certain point value, and they play, point value games. So 2,500 points. Each thing is worth X number of points. Add up your army to 2,500. That's the thing that you get to use. They're playing on, in general, much bigger of a scale than a lot of the skirmish games that tend to be a little bit more popular, that are more compact, quicker, all of that. These games are a couple hours every time when people know what they're doing. So I really just recommend, if you have the opportunity to experience something like it, give it a shot. It is surprisingly fun. I think that there's a lot of things that turn people off to it, seeing folks standing over a table with a tape measure and doing all of that stuff, but it really is a good time. And I'm not gonna say too much more about it. I just encourage people, step out of your comfort zone, give those mini games a chance, and if you have the opportunity to play Warhammer with someone who knows what they're doing, I'm going to encourage you to do it, because I think it's going to be a fun, cool experience for you. Josh, have you ever played Warhammer or anything similar?
No.
I encourage you to do it.
Well, I have Star Wars Armada. I think that might be the closest you'll get me to a miniatures game.
Well, we can try. Just like I've never played a tabletop RPG, so there we go. We have these goals. So, all right. Well, that's enough of the tabletop. Josh, what have you been playing on your television, sir?
Oh boy, what haven't I been playing? Not a lot. Let's start with Gears 5, because I said not a lot. I don't know if you've revisited since our woes. I haven't revisited Gears 5 since Borderlands 3 came out. Because
how far did you get in Gears 5?
You know how far I got. As far
That's
as
all the farther you got?
Yeah.
Okay.
It has not played for me. It just crashes. It just freezes. It's just... I don't know. I'm going to revisit Gears. I don't know when. I'll get to it. But I understand that we played before the game technically released. And maybe that's an excuse. Maybe it's not.
No, it's not.
I'm just not very happy with my start of my experience. I don't. I know that doesn't represent the game as a whole, but
Right.
sometimes these things happen, and it certainly affects people's enjoyment of a game. And I'm just one of those people at the moment. So I'm going to play games that work and that I'm having fun with, and then I'll check back with Gears 5 when I have time, because obviously, like, time is important to me right now since I can't get board games to the table when I want to, and things like that. I can't be wasting time with a game that doesn't work.
So I will, if it's cool with you, I will briefly talk about
Please
Gears
do.
5.
Yeah, please do.
So I played a little more after we played. I started a new campaign, so I played up to where we played, which actually did not take all that long. And then continued past that. I get to the point where some of the quote-unquote different things that they're doing with the game start. I didn't do any of those things, but I got to the point where that starts. Here's what I can say, for better or for worse, about what I've played thus far. It is beautiful. It's a very good-looking game. It is Gears of War.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's not good or bad. I like Gears of War. But from what I have played thus far, it has not done anything that I have loved. It also hasn't done anything that I've hated. But it so far feels very much like Gears of War. I know I am at the precipice of when things get different and things they try some stuff. So I'm interested to see what happens next. But like you, because we had so many issues with the game when it started, it's really hard for me to give my time to it right now.
Yeah. Hey, and that's on them. That's not on us. We need to put our game time in where we enjoy it.
Indeed. So what's next on your list?
Well, you kind of gave me a perfect segue. Speaking of games that are games, Borderlands 3. So I've been playing Borderlands 3. I haven't put in a ton of time just because of availability. And now that I'm back to working, like, really working nights, I have, like, no time, which really stinks. But I put a few hours in. We talked earlier, I'm level 8, so that's not very far at all. In fact, it's no secret that there's other planets in this game, and I'm just leaving the first planet, and that's all I'll say. As far as story-wise, in fact, I stopped it just today when I got into the spaceship, which is something you need. And talking about a perfect segue, Borderlands 3 is Borderlands. It's much prettier while maintaining in detail. It's much prettier in detail while maintaining the same look and feel of Borderlands 2. I think that can be a negative for a lot of people, which is fine, but you shouldn't be playing Borderlands 3 if you didn't like Borderlands 2. I think that should be black and white. Or at least, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over, expecting something different.
Right.
So if you're expecting Borderlands 3 to not be like a Borderlands game, you're insane. That's a definition. However, I'm enjoying my time with it a lot, but I'm a Borderlands fanboy, so that should be said. The guns, still incredible. It can be frustrating, and it can be awesome all at the same time. I continuously find myself running out of ammo, which is refreshing and frustrating. So many games we play that I can't say that I ever feel like I'm running out of ammo truly. And there's been a lot of times in this game where I've run out of ammo on both guns. And luckily I had one gun with like a knife at the end of it, which dealt a crazy amount of damage. So I was able to defend myself.
Quick question about that. What types of guns, not obviously all the guns are super different, but as far as specific variety, SMG, pistol, etc., have you come across?
Have I come across?
Yeah.
Ooh, shotgun, SMG, handgun, sniper, essentially an assault rifle, and then a bunch of weird variations of all those different types of guns.
Okay, so you're not that much farther than I have.
Yeah.
No
rocket launchers yet.
Pistol, SMG, shotgun is it. That is all I have gotten.
Really?
I'm level 5. Those are the only guns I've gotten.
I mean, that doesn't sound crazy. There's 1 billion guns in the game.
I know. I just was kind of hoping because.
And don't forget you have the alternate fire, so I think.
No, for sure. But alluding to the idea that, oh, here's this world with 1 billion guns. The focus is on the guns,
Yeah.
right? It seems odd that you'd run into a situation that when they want you to have these awesome guns, it'd be odd that either A, you run out of ammo because the whole fun of the game is shooting the ridiculous guns, or B, though, I can't even go into my inventory and switch to an assault rifle that isn't maybe quite as good to still have a gun with ammo because I haven't found any.
I think that's by design, though. I think because they don't want to unlock all the guns on the first intro planet. Because I really think everything opens up once you move on.
And I kind of assumed these are the guns you get at the beginning, these types. So that's more of why I was asking. I wanted to see if it was restricted to you at the beginning. You only kind of get these varieties.
Yeah, but besides what you listed, I only also listed a sniper rifle.
You said assault rifle.
Well, that's like there's an SMG and there's an assault rifle. They're in the same class.
Oh, do they use the same ammo?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know.
I think they do. They have the same gun icon on the screen, at least. So I'm assuming they use the same.
Oh, I assumed they were different. So maybe
you might have an assault rifle.
I might have an assault rifle. I don't even know it. I assumed they were just SMGs because it looked like a little gun.
Oh no, the SMG looks bigger. I mean, the assault rifle looks bigger.
Okay.
Maybe you just haven't found assault rifles. Yeah.
I don't think I've found any.
Okay. Anyways, they're there. I saw Coach Mo thought in Discord today that he thought the humor was more childish or less fleshed out. I think the humor is exactly the same. In fact, I haven't found anything overly profane or sexualized than any other Borderlands game. I think it's all been pretty much the same. I like the development of the villains doesn't really start to unfold until you get closer to the end of the first planet.
Right, I know they exist. Obviously I know stuff from previous, but otherwise in game they've said basically nothing other than they exist and who they are. Yeah,
they kind of pop up, probably not too far from where you are, but just like Borderlands 2 and Borderlands 1, you do a lot on foot at first. And you're kind of traversing the map, and you do have the ability to explore submissions pretty early on that take you, like if you know the other Borderlands, like you have a part in the map where basically it loads another map. I haven't even messed with that other side of the map yet because I just assumed everything's higher level. So I just kind of, because I think we can come back to the planet. So I just wanted to kind of get that story going, and then I'll come back. But so far so good. I enjoy the story. I like that it incorporates Tales from the Borderlands. It incorporates Borderlands 2. I will say this was pretty funny when I was describing the game to my friend who really wants to get Borderlands. He played Borderlands 2 with me co-op. I was telling him what was going on, and I was telling him, and so far, and lots of Chris Hardwick. And he's like, wasn't he canceled? I was like, yeah, apparently not. But he's definitely in it. So
not when Randy Pitchford's involved. No one's canceled.
I'm not. I don't necessarily agree with what Kyle is saying. So yeah, what about you? I know you're playing it. What's your experience been?
Yeah, it's I think similar to so far for my Gears 5 experience being that it's more Gears, this is more Borderlands. And you are right that if you played Borderlands 2 and you like Borderlands 2, you will like Borderlands 3.
Yeah.
If you played Borderlands 2 and didn't like it, you will not like Borderlands 3. There is nothing that is going to win you over.
Yeah.
And part of me was like, well, it was a little different because, games like God of War recreated who Kratos was, how the combat was, etc., etc. It also dropped the number. Yeah. So it kind of was, hey, we're starting over. Whereas this is very clearly not doing that. So I'm having fun. I do think Borderlands is fun and it's cool to drive around. I do feel I think the shooting feels a little better than it did in past versions. It took a bit to get used to again because of another game that I'm playing, which we'll talk about in a bit. But overall, having fun with it. Like I said, I'm only level 5. I am Flack because, of course, he has animals. And why wouldn't I pick the person with animals? And I felt very bad because your animals can go down and then you have to go revive them. and I was so committed to reviving my animal, I died one time. Rather than just killing the thing I should kill, I had to go save my animal, and I died. But yeah, all that stuff is back. Getting your second chance, where if you kill something while you're bleeding out, you come back to life, and like all of that stuff is there. The guns so far, nothing super overly ridiculous, but like I said, they feel, I think, better than they have in the past. Yeah, and the humor, I know that's very divisive. Thus far, like you said, nothing that has made me groan, but
yeah,
the Borderlands humor isn't always something that's really hit with me anyway. Borderlands is a game I just think is fun to run around and shoot stuff and do the ridiculous missions and things like that.
Yeah.
So it is scratching the itch that I had for more Borderlands.
Nice. Okay. Do you want me to talk about my last game now, or do you want to talk about your other two games?
I'll go through my other two games real quick. One of them being Risk of Rain 2, which was kind of a surprise stealth drop onto consoles and all that good stuff. I jumped into it because I had seen streamers playing it back when it first was announced, and they were playing it on PC, and it looked really fun. So I said, hey, it's pretty inexpensive. I think it's $20 or $30. Indie game being dropped on, console, surprise stealth launch. Sure, I'll give it a whirl. It looked fun. I enjoy the roguelite type games, and it's a good time.
Yeah.
Risk of Rain 2 is really fun. It's not a super pretty game. It definitely is indie through and through. All of the good that means, and all of sometimes the challenges that means. So the game has a very interesting, eclectic style. It's not going to be the best graphics you've ever seen, but the art design and how they put it all together fits. The music, also not going to be the best standalone music you've ever seen, but fits with the art design and everything else. The package that they're delivering goes together well. It's a fun game. It's an interesting game. It took me way longer than it should have to figure out how to progress through everything, because there really are no tutorials. They drop you in and it says, hey, go find the teleporter, and you're like, I don't even know what the teleporter looks like, but okay.
You find 18 other objects that aren't the teleporter.
Yes, I literally was walking up to things thinking, sometimes out loud, sometimes in my head, is this the teleporter? No, okay. This wants money and I get something. Okay, I got something. What does this thing do? I have no idea.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's good. Let's continue on and shoot things. But I'm really enjoying it. I don't know that it is a game I will ever sit down and play for 4, 5, 6 hours straight, but it is definitely a game at the end of evenings or when I'm trying to wind things down that I will jump into and do a quick run in. Most of my runs so far have been about 30 minutes or so. I know that for people, when you get good and know what you're doing, they go much faster. But overall, Risk of Rain 2, I think is a pretty easy recommendation if you were into that style of game and are looking for something a little more open world. But like I said, I'd recommend checking out a video or something first, because that aesthetic is definitely something that might turn some people off. The other game that I played as I jumped into the Call of Duty Modern Warfare multiplayer beta. So this was only on PlayStation 4 for the first weekend, and just kind of gave you the feel for what Call of Duty, the new Call of Duty, is going to be, how it's going to play, how it's going to feel. Just doing most of the typical multiplayer game modes you'd think. There was Team Deathmatch, there was Domination, all that sort of stuff. This is kind of on top of the 2v2 alpha that they had previously. And then this coming weekend, if you listen to this right when the show releases, they're doing the crossplay beta. So if you have pre-ordered on any platform, you can play together with people via, I believe, your Activision account is how that works. So you have to have an account with Activision, and then you'd be able to play or invite friends, and you can see if they're on PlayStation or Xbox or what they're playing on, all of that good stuff. So all of that general stuff out of the way, this feels like Call of Duty. It feels really good. I think, some folks, it seemed like there was some pushback or some people weren't really pleased with it on social media, but I had a really good time. It felt like Call of Duty. The game feels tight, and this is kind of the game I was referring to when I was talking about Borderlands. Not quite feeling exactly precise while I was playing Call of Duty. So the shooting is still there. It definitely is a throwback in some ways, but a new direction in others, and it's really subtle. I used to play a lot of Call of Duty, and I think the biggest thing I've noticed is that now, especially at least in the maps that they had in this beta, they talk a lot about having 3 lanes in multiplayer games, the multiplayer maps, that there's 3 kind of lanes that action happens in. That's true in this game, that most of the maps that they showed or were showcasing over the weekend had 3 lanes, but within each of those lanes, the number of places of windows and doors and other trenches and other things that people could be shooting from seems significantly more than in previous versions of Call of Duty. Could be my perception. I have bounced off of the multiplayer pretty quickly in most Call of Duties in recent years, just because I'm not as good as I used to be. But it definitely took some time to get used to. It definitely took a little bit of playing to kind of get in the groove of how this game feels, how the motion feels. The firefights between players are very quick. I do enjoy I can't remember exactly what they call it, but your ability on each gun that you use, the more you use it, the experience you get, it unlocks, gets more unlocks for that specific gun, and really being able to kind of customize the gun that you want to use or the loadout you want to use, really down to very specific fine details to kind of get a kit that's going to work best for the way that you play.
Is it just per match, or is that like something that stays every time you jump back in?
So you can adjust the gun. So you can create loadouts just like before, that you have, gun A with a XYZ scope, this stock, this silencer, whatever. But you can go in the middle of the match in loadout 1 and change what you have equipped to the gun itself.
Okay.
So yeah, and even if you unlock something for the gun in the middle of the match because you've gotten enough experience on that gun, you can immediately go equip the thing. You don't have to wait until the match.
Do you keep it for future matches though? Okay, yep. That's cool. That's good.
Yep. So and I think they've said that some guns will have up to 60 attachments.
Whoa. Nice.
So if you think of all of the thing and how much experience you'll have to get with each of these weapons in order to kind of fully customize them, it's quite a bit. But otherwise, it's kind of your, you have your primary, you have your secondary, you have your 3 perks, you have your tactical grenade, and you have your frag grenade / semtex / claymore / whatever, and that's it. That's what the game is. You run around and you do your Call of Duty thing. So it feels really good. I'll be very interested as things, there's a lot of controversy about this game with the realism they're going for, the white phosphorus stuff, and we'll maybe talk about that later. There was an interesting article that was written up and posted on IGN today about that. But overall, if you enjoy Call of Duty, I do think this is in some ways just more Call of Duty. But if you've been away from the game for a while and you come back, it's going to take a bit to get used to again. But man, no game to me still feels as good as Call of Duty does while you're playing it. Just almost never do I die and say that was that something weird happened. I might blame the computer or tell the computer I disagree, but it was my fault.
Sure.
It really was my fault. So, like I said, kind of a return to form as far as that goes. And finally then, though, I just wanted to briefly say, because we've talked about this game a ton, and I think we'll probably talk about this game a lot at the end of the year, but I got the Platinum in Control.
Nice.
Platinum achieved.
Good job.
So that is done. I got it all complete before they did the patch, so I don't know if the game's running any better or anything like that right now. But yeah, Platinum done. Ashtray Maze, still one of the coolest experiences in a game I think I have ever had. Control's great. I recommend it. Josh loves it. Yeah. That's all I have to say about it. Do you have other things to say about Control, good sir?
No, I just want to spoil it for everybody. That's all I want to do.
But we're not going to do that.
No, I thought it was brilliant. I can't wait to jump back into it just to finish up some loose ends, because I was having some difficulties with some of the missions afterwards, and I had to go do a few things and then come back, and sometimes I have to go to Google and be like, hey, why am I dumb? How do I do this? And there's still a guy that I'm having trouble beating, and I like that. I like that I still have all this stuff after completing the game to do.
Absolutely. And if you want to talk afterwards, we can talk.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think I might know who you're having trouble with. So, I kind of cheesed that, if I recall.
No, I cheesed that too, if I'm thinking of this.
Okay.
Are you thinking of the mirror?
Never mind.
No. I cheesed the mirror.
Okay. That's fine. All right. Any other video games you'd like to talk about here, sir?
Do I get Zelda this weekend?
That's it. Okay, so here's the funny thing. I really wanted to play Zelda, right? Sorry, side story, dear listener. Oh, and going back even further, Gunsmith. That's what it's called in Call of Duty when you customize your gun. Gunsmith. Anyway, when I was running around today doing some errands, I talked about getting Ex Libris at Barnes & Noble. I also finally went and bought Astral Chain.
Ugh.
Okay? Because I love Platinum. I love Bayonetta. I love the games that they make. I just do. I really enjoy Platinum. So, went and got Astral Chain. And I'm standing there, and I went to GameStop because it was just there. And I bought it physically, which I don't do very often. Because I was like, well, if I beat this quick enough, maybe I can trade it back in for a different game, like Luigi's Mansion 3, something like that. I'm standing there, and the guy is like, oh, Astral Chain, it was so good. I was so happy with the money I spent on it and all the hours I put into it, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, okay, cool. And, GameStop being GameStop, he goes, do you want to pre-order anything? I'm like, no, I'm good. Are you sure? Link's Awakening comes out Friday. And immediately I went, dang it. I should have just bought Link's Awakening instead of Astral Chain. But I completely forgot.
Yeah. Well.
Josh, what did I do?
Did you already open Astral Chain?
No, well, I didn't. But
there's your answer.
I felt really bad because I almost wanted to tell the dude, like, no, don't complete this transaction. I will just give you $60 for Link's Awakening instead. You can keep Astral Chain. But Astral Chain is supposed to be really good, so I don't know why I don't want it, but I really want to play Link's Awakening. I don't have enough time,
I know.
Josh.
I think I might have to wait like a month before I get Link's Awakening, even though I want to get it.
What you could do is wait till it goes on sale. So you could play it.
48.
I was going to say holiday 2021.
It will not be on sale in 2021.
2 years? I think maybe 2 years. You might find a Black Friday deal.
I guarantee you ARMS still costs $60. And that game, Link's Awakening isn't even out yet. And ARMS is 1/10 the game that Link's Awakening is.
So, yeah. So anyway, I hopefully we'll be jumping into Astral Chain soon. But yeah, I think you should probably beat Borderlands, then get Link's Awakening.
Well, I'll have to beat Borderlands and then Gears 5 and then play Control and New Game Plus and then get Link's Awakening.
Well, are you getting Ghost Recon?
Yeah, I want to.
And you'll have Concrete Genie for sure.
I'll get Ghost Recon.
And you'll have Call of Duty for sure.
I'll get Ghost Recon if people tell me they want to play it. And I know how that all works, but I want,
Right.
But I know the game is looking like it's best played with multiple people. So if people tell me, even if people are getting it, and they can't even commit to a day, at least I will know that the option is out there. I know if I get it, we can play it. I already know that. That's great, and I'm happy about that.
But you're not good enough, Kyle. I need more people. I need other people.
I think for Ghost Recon, I would like at least a third, if not a fourth, that we can try to make it work.
Right.
But yes, I mean, how could I not want this game? It looks so good. So we're running into this thing again where we come into the holidays and we go, it doesn't look like we're going to have a lot of games coming up. And then 3 weeks later, we're like, oh my God, we have too many games.
I know, and I was actually kind of proud of myself because I didn't play Gears 5 until I had beaten Control.
Me too.
And then I was really under the mentality that I wouldn't play Borderlands 3 until I beat Gears 5. But we had so many issues getting Gears 5 going that then Borderlands 3 came out, and I'm like, well, this is kind of the thing everyone's talking about. Gears 5 was on Game Pass, so I paid for it, but I paid a monthly subscription that I'm paying anyway for it, whereas Josh spent his hard-earned money on Borderlands.
Yes.
I need to play Borderlands. That's what I need to do. So, yeah, it's interesting. And, even if you think there's still Link's Awakening, like you had just said, I'm considering jumping back into the original Ni no Kuni, which just came out remastered. I kind of want to play Catherine remastered. So that's 3. Then you have Ghost Recon, you have Concrete Genie, there's the Call of Duty. How?
There's not enough time.
Josh, We're mortal people who work full-time jobs. How are we supposed to do this?
We gotta win the lottery. Stop buying $60 games and start buying
$60
$61
lottery
scratch tickets.
Oh man, I know. I don't know. You know if that would do it
No,
at this
it would
point.
not.
So, all right. Well, that is enough of us belly aching about our inability to play video games.
We're not a video game podcast.
I know. Well, and don't even get me started on board games. My
Yeah,
goodness,
well, I have
man.
more board games that I haven't played than I own video games.
And here's the kind of interesting thing is last week, not even last week, yesterday when I was putting together show notes for this show, in my mind as I started putting together show notes, I said, there's really not that many things to talk about. And now today, as I went through the day and all the things, I'm like, what was I thinking? There was a ton of things to talk about. And news next week is going to be ridiculous.
Maybe.
It's going to be ridiculous. The things I already have.
We had Death Stranding at least. Make sure you include that in your notes. We haven't talked about Death Stranding since
we haven't talked
their
about Death
49-minute demo.
I know. The American Tabletop Awards are now a thing, so that's the thing we can talk about. So much.
We got to get some of those people on this show.
I'm
going to work on that.
That's all you. Okay, we're now going to get to the topic of the show, which we probably should have gotten to 10 minutes ago, but it's fine. This might go real quick. We'll have to wait and see. Okay, so Magic the Gathering has been around since 1993 and is credited with creating the collectible card game genre. Magic is a game that has really continued to attract new players, and one could argue that the recent years of Magic have been some of the most successful it's ever have. And one person critical to the design of Magic is Mark Rosewater. Morrow, as he's often referred to, has been with Wizards of the Coast and designing Magic for over 20 years. And back in 2016, at GDC, he gave a talk about the 20 lessons he had learned about game design in his 20 years at Magic. You can see this talk on YouTube. I really recommend it because it's only an hour long to watch, and he goes through all 20 lessons. But there are also 3 articles on the Wizards of the Coast website that Mark wrote about these lessons. I thought it'd be fun to kind of go through each of these articles. So we'll only do one of the 3 articles today. So we're only going to talk about 6 lessons today, not all 20. Don't worry. I know the podcast is already over or pushing an hour and a quarter. We're only going through 6. But I thought it'd be interesting to kind of go through these lessons that he learned and talk about them from the perspective of gamers, right? I don't know that Josh has ever really dabbled in game design. I definitely have tried to design board games and still have some things I'm working on that I'm pretty excited about. But I think it's interesting to take the context of what he has learned and then think about it from the perspective of a gamer and say like, yeah, this makes sense. Or, oh, I can see where this works here and all of that good stuff. So, Josh, are you ready to jump into this?
I am ready.
Okay. So lesson number 1, and I'm just going to talk about what the lesson is, and we can go into how he got to it if we need to. But lesson number 1, he says, fighting against human nature is a losing battle. When you hear that, Josh, is that just one of those, well, of course statements? Or what do you think about that?
You said fighting against human nature is a losing battle? Yeah. I think that's a very profound statement, and obviously not just used for board games. I think it's something we do every day, to a point.
Right.
I guess it really depends on where you land on nature versus nurture, and can you be changed from? And I think it's been proven that it can be changed, right? Even in animals.
Sure.
This might be way off topic, but
no, I don't think it is at all.
If you look at dogs, domesticated animals in general, that's nurture beating nature.
Mm-hmm.
However, you always hear stories about the nature coming out in animals, and we just kill them because we think it's unacceptable. I think you will always be fighting, whether it's human nature or just nature in general. You will always be fighting that. People still to this day have conflicts about whether a male is supposed to be monogamous or just on this earth to create more humans. That's something that people still debate So we're constantly fighting human nature, but I will agree that it is a losing battle in the aspect of we will never fully overcome human nature. It will always exist. I don't know what aspect it will exist in, but it will.
Well, and I think the interesting thing about this is if you listen to his talk about it, he mentions that there are certain things that overall do to some extent change human nature. Cell phones, I think, is the example he gives, or iPhones or something like that, as being something that does change human nature. But look at how big that is. You're a game designer. You're designing a game, so you can't expect your players to change to match your game. You need to change your game to match your players. And one of the reasons I like Mark Rosewater so much is this is something I actually use at work all the time. When I'm thinking about the processes we do or how we interact with people or when we create something that we expect folks to go through, I try to think of the fact of, okay, instead of changing their behavior to fit this thing we've created, is there a way we can create this thing that will seamlessly integrate with the way they're probably already going to act? And I think it is it sounds so, well, of course. Yeah. But I think so often we get so caught up with like, well, no, I created this thing this way, or I see this as this is the only way this can go. We lose sight of the fact of, well, right, but is that really what makes more sense? Wouldn't it be way better, way easier, more streamlined, more effective if we just did it the way that made the most sense for us to do it?
Right.
Yeah. All right. So there you go. Lesson number 1, fighting against human nature is a losing battle. Lesson number 2, Josh, and this might be a controversial one. Aesthetics matter.
I don't know that. Yes, but if you say yes, you're a bad person. Because it's a double-edged sword. Like, if you say aesthetics matter, what does that say about you?
Well, and I think it's important to clarify, he's not specifically talking about looks or the way something looks. That's part of it.
Sure.
But he's talking about how playing of the game or how the game feels.
Which is mechanics.
Well, he goes way more in depth of it, but it's not just about
perception.
The look of the game specifically. Yes,
it's the perception of the game. I get what you're saying. Okay, so no, I don't. I understand that. Okay, there's a difference here, right? Aesthetics matter or aesthetics are important, I think, are two different things.
Oh, okay.
Because just because your game isn't aesthetically pleasing doesn't mean it's not good. But is it important? It depends on if you're trying to get new people, someone who isn't familiar with your product, involved with your product. That's when aesthetics are important. So I guess matter is more of the eye of the beholder. If you think it matters, then it matters. But if we base this on Magic, and this is coming from, I'm assuming, a later set, you have your fan base. Sure, you're always trying to get new people, but is it important? Maybe I might be mincing words to make it more complicated. I think that whether it's a consistent fan base or new gamers, I agree that it needs to be aesthetically pleasing to an extent. But we talk about this one particular game that I think is not aesthetically pleasing. Everyone loves it. It's a superhero game.
Oh, okay. I'm on board with you now.
And I'm in the minority, right? I'm fighting against what I'm trying to say because I don't like it because I think it looks terrible. But
is that really the only reason you don't like it?
Well, I mean, it's a big part of why I don't like it, but I just don't like. Yeah, it is the main reason why I don't like it. It's because they embraced it. I think that's what really bugs me. Is the game could look so much better. They could get a better artist in a heartbeat, especially with how well the game is done. So I am being a hypocrite because you know what? Aesthetics do matter in the case of that one game for me.
And listener, the game we're talking about is Sentinels of the Multiverse.
Sure, we can say it, I guess.
We'll just say it. That's the game.
I mean, I have a lot of board games that people don't consider aesthetically pleasing that I really enjoy. But I think Sentinels of the Multiverse was like the first game that was really unpleasant for me to look at and play.
And this is interesting because this is something that he doesn't talk about in this first article, but I'm hoping that we'll eventually go through all three of these articles and he talks about something related to that later. But when he's talking about aesthetics, obviously how things look, the art on card matters, but he's also talking about balance, symmetry, and pattern completion is kind of what he's talking about. And it's interesting because the card he uses to illustrate this is a card from Avacyn Restored, which is actually a really cool card. It's a creature named Grizzlebrand, who he is a 7/7. So he has 7 power and 7 toughness.
7 foot. I thought 7 foot 7 inches.
He's a 7/7, so 7 damage, 7 toughness. And if you pay 7 life, you draw 7 cards.
Yeah.
And he costs 8 mana to play. So players from a pattern completion balance thing, you have a 7/7 who you pay 7 life to draw 7 cards.
So they're mad he doesn't cost 7 to put out?
Correct.
Yeah, that's stupid.
Correct. See, I don't think it is stupid because as someone who played Magic at that time, it is totally one of those things where I was like, oh, a 7/7 for you pay 7 life, draw 7 cards. That's really cool for 7. Oh, 8.
Does he have flavor text
like,
that says all 7s all day? Because like then I don't care.
Actually, his flavor text says Avacyn emerged from the broken Hell Vault, but her freedom came at a price. Him. So that's what his flavor text says.
Then I don't. Sorry, I'm in the minority. I guess that doesn't bother me at all.
And that's fine. And like I said, that is totally cool. But you're right. I think that aesthetics. You know, when we talk about like splatter games, right? Really great, really heavy games. But how often do people say, "Why am I paying for $100 for a game that looks like this?"
Yeah.
You know, so the way a game looks, whether it be literally the art and the graphic design or those other things, they're going to impact people. So in general, he's saying aesthetics matter. And I think we agree, but maybe about different parts of the aesthetics that matter.
I think I'm all over the place on it because I thought I started off strong on one side and then I found the exact opposite case. So who knows? I don't really know where I land on that one. It is important. It is important to step
Okay. All right. So the next thing, lesson number 3, halfway there. Lesson 3, resonance is important.
Mm-hmm.
When you hear that statement, Josh, what do you think?
What do I think? I think, well, almost the definition of it, a game that resonates is important, or it is important for a game to resonate with you. So, whether that's the intention or not, yes, that's important because you'll never talk about a game that doesn't resonate with you. And that's not necessarily a positive or negative statement. Like, there's plenty of games that resonate me with me in a negative way that I'll never forget. Superman 64, and there's plenty of games that will resonate with me in a positive way. We just talked about Everdell today over social media, like In Control. Those games that will always resonate with me in a positive way. I think that the biggest thing that's the most important thing about something that resonates with you is it can just be the idea of something. So I can tell you Contra 2 resonates with me as a great game experience I had. But if I can't tell you anything about that game, what's really resonating with me? If I told you Contra 1 resonates with me, and I can tell you every level, how like who the bad guy is, what each level is, what kind of stage it is, that's when resonance is important because you're like this. I can't think of the word. You're representing this game that man, I can't think of the word. Your job is, this game came out, so this Magic comes out, they go, we developed this set, blah blah blah. But our goal is this is for our Magic players. We want this to resonate with them. We want Kyle telling people about this game, about this set, for years to come. Kyle does our work for us. That's what we need to make money, at least. I know art is different. You can't necessarily equivalent art and money.
Right.
Because some artists, most artists, that's not their goal. And I always view Magic as an artistic game based on, how beautiful the cards are. But if a game isn't resonating with people, it's not making money for people. I think in the black and white sense of it.
Yeah,
which is a very long roundabout way for me to get to what I was trying to say.
No, that's okay. And I think the cool thing that, when Mauro talks about this, he talks about how we all come with life experience to games. And for him, resonance is important, really, a lot of times is talking about when we, for better or for worse, a game I talk about all the time with this is Dead of Winter, right? Everything in Dead of Winter plays like I feel like it should play. That zombies act in the way zombies, I think, should act, and that they resonate with my experiences previous and all the things that I know. Like, this game feels and fits, and it goes along with my understanding of what these things are. And it kind of talks about, that initial idea that, like, fighting against human nature is a losing battle. Take what your players know and fall into that and use that to your advantage when you're designing your game. One of the cards that they use as an example of this is there's a card called Black Cat, right? Josh, what do you know about black cats?
I have one.
Well, I know you have one, but what are the when you hear about the stereotypes, or like, right? Okay, so guess what happens when the creature Black Cat dies in Magic? Guess what happens?
Bad things.
A target opponent has to discard a card.
Oh, bad things for other person.
Bad thing. Yeah, a bad thing happened, right? Because the opponent is the person who killed the Black Cat. So since they killed the Black Cat, now something bad happens to them.
Yeah.
So that is, to him, that is resonance. It fits with what you understand of how these things should work. So I think it's cool. I think it's definitely something that, a lot of games that I really enjoy when I think back about it, fit into that really, really well.
Nice.
His next lesson is something that I will probably explain a little bit, because I think just stating it isn't going to make any sense. Because lesson number 4 is make use of piggybacking. And what he actually uses for piggybacking is basically what he's saying is take what people know to be true about something, or the knowledge they already have, as a shortcut to how you're designing your game. And I think the thing that's fascinating about this is he uses an example of a different game designer, George Fan, who's the creator of Plants vs. Zombies. What he did when he created Plants vs. Zombies, the original one, tower defense game, you have the plants that are trying to prevent the zombies from getting to the tower. The reason he used plants was because when you plant a plant, it doesn't move. And we all generally know that, right? You put a plant down, that's where it is. The plant can't go anywhere. Because he really was trying to think of a way to make sure that when players put these things down, they knew they couldn't move them. So that's why he picked plants. And the reason he picked zombies is because as people, generally, what do we know about zombies? They're this thing that just keeps coming. They just go towards whatever their goal is, and they just keep rambling towards it. That was it. That's why the game became Plants vs. Zombies, because he wanted people to understand how the game was going to work, how their things were going to work, how the enemy was going to attack, and is the greatest shorthand that he could. And that's what he says by piggybacking, is take advantage of what your audience already knows and build on that to build your game.
Sure.
Thoughts?
Makes sense. The first thing I thought of was probably pretty similar. It's how when every time we review a game or talk about a game, we always say this uses this mechanic like this game. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, you draw cards, and then you pass them to the left, like Seven Wonders.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I thought of, like piggybacking, like taking a mechanic that people
Absolutely.
are familiar with,
Yep.
utilizing in your game, but making it like systematically different so that people can differentiate between your game and the other person's game.
Absolutely. Think about, from a video game perspective, most games now, like first-person shooter games, all control basically the same.
Yeah.
Think about how frustrating it is when the jump button is not where it's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because I literally stopped playing the Mad Max game because the jump button was in the stupidest spot ever
I know, and you couldn't
placed
change it
in a video game ever. I refused.
Wasn't it like on like the bumper or R1, L1? Wasn't it like up there?
You know what? At
Is
this
that
point,
where it was?
it isn't resonating with me. I don't remember where it was. That game could have been so good if it wasn't for that jump button.
Yeah. So piggybacking is a good thing. It's okay to use what other knowledge or games have done to make your game better. That is okay to do. And I think that was interesting. Next lesson, lesson 5. Like I said, last 2. This one is maybe one of my favorite lessons of the whole 20 that he has. Have you read these ahead of time, or are you just going as we go? Okay. Lesson number 5. Don't confuse interesting with fun.
Oh, sure. That's pretty easy. Hey, that guy just killed four women. Oh, that's interesting. Definitely.
Wow,
definitely not fun. Sorry, I was listening to My Favorite Murder before I came home.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are interesting, because what makes something interesting is, I think, inherently that you don't necessarily understand how or why or who or what. And at least for me, something I find interesting is perhaps something I don't understand. Something that's fun is I inherently understand what it is because I know that it's fun. And that might be a weird backwards way to describe it, but fun, I think, has to be described by someone who has participated in that activity and can describe it as fun. And I would never tell you something was fun unless I have engaged in it. Unless I said, I heard blank said this was fun.
Right.
But I could open a web browser right now and tell you 15 things that are interesting to me, not knowing anything about them. In fact...
Sure.
Yeah, well, we'll save that for Bored with Everything. So yeah, I think... I don't know how I would necessarily put that into... Well, yeah. So, like, if a new board game came out that had this really unique mechanism, like you're drafting a bill, and everyone you play against votes as the Senate. Oh, that's interesting. But that doesn't sound like fun to me.
Right.
But that could be a brand new take on a board game.
Yeah, and that's, I think, exactly the point, is that often when we don't like something or we're not really enamored with something, but we don't want to be mean, we'll say that it's interesting. Well, it's really interesting that they chose to do this, but it just didn't quite jive with me. Like, we try to pad almost what it is. And the thing that Maro talks about, and I think is so... I'm probably sounding like I'm a gushing fanboy here, which I'm not. I just think I think how he explains things just really resonate with me. Ha, resonance. He talks about that interesting is an intellectual response, fun is an emotional response.
Yeah.
So something being interesting is intellectually what we think about it, but something being fun is emotionally our experience with something. So if our true desire and drive is to try to make a game that people want to play, we need to be more focused on making it fun rather than interesting, because the emotional response is what brings people back, not the intellectual intrigue of it. And I think hearing him say that and reading through that is one of those things that really was like a light bulb going off for me of like, oh my gosh, that is so obvious, but I never thought of it that way before. Because I described many, many games as interesting. A lot of games as interesting. when I don't think they were very fun.
Oh,
That's
note
often what
note
I
to
say.
self. I'll have to remember that.
Yeah. All right. And the last rule for the evening, or lesson for the evening, lesson number 6, understand what emotion your game is trying to evoke.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the most clear lesson that he said.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you don't understand what your game is telling people, how do you expect them to understand that themselves? And it's up to their interpretation if they see it the same way as you do, but why put something out that you don't understand?
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is probably that sounds like the easiest one to understand without having to go into more detail. If you don't understand the message you're trying to send, obviously emotion is inherently in the message. Then what are you doing? And do you expect success? Because how do you sell that game? You're not just creating something. You have to sell it. Whether it's to your significant other or to a fan you've never met at a convention, you have to sell your product. And sometimes your product is you, which is unfortunate, but I think it's a good lesson still. I just think it's probably the easiest of the ones that he's mentioned.
Absolutely. And I think it makes sense too for trying to think about how am I going to, every game they talk about how games start off very, very large and they're whittled down and whittled down and whittled down and whittled down. And once you can't cut anything else out, that is the game you should be shipping. So all of that other stuff are the things that don't lead towards what are you trying to get players to feel. And this isn't necessarily that you want them to feel fun from before. You want them to have fun while they play. But are they supposed to be feeling a sense of dread because it's a horror theme game? Is it supposed to be something light and lively because it's based on a theme park? Like, what are you trying to do? And getting everything narrowed down to just feeling that thing. And I think it seems that we talk very often about really being happy with games that I think Control is a perfect version of this. Not perfect, a very good version of this. That Control knows what it wants you to feel, which I think is confusion. But it does but it makes everything in that game goes towards that feeling and it goes towards intrigue and asking questions and wanting to know more and trying to find out the truth. Like everything is pushing you that direction. I think Control is a great example of nothing in that game doesn't push you back towards those things.
Control tells you, well, that's the thing. Control tells you what they want you to feel without it feeling forced. Like they don't make you feel anything that you aren't already feeling. They do such a good job at making you feel this way because I feel like they made it so they felt that way. Mm-hmm. Like everything, obviously, when I said it was like it could have easily been a Matrix game, I don't take that back. It's very I'm at such a loss for words tonight. It's very directed to how they want you to feel. Like they set out on this path, and I feel like if we could just be in a room with them, these writers, they must have these bullet points. This is when this person's going to feel this way. And this is when this person's going to feel this way. And then we're going to do this. And they're not going to know what's going on. It's so perfectly orchestrated that, in fact, there's something that they orchestrated that is a straight out ridiculous play. They messed every player up with it. I want to say so much more, but really they know exactly what they were doing, and I agree that fits right in with what you're talking about.
Very cool. So there are the first 6 of the 20 years, 20 lessons learned. Like I said, if you want to, GDC does have Mark Rosewater's speech on YouTube. Go watch the entire thing in an hour. Otherwise, there are 3 articles on Magic's website, each one doing 6 or 7 of the lessons. So, like I said, that is part 1 from back in 2016. And parts 2 and 3, we'll see. Maybe we'll do those as well because there's a couple interesting ones, or maybe I'll go through the last 2 and just pick out 5 or 6 that are really cool. It depends. I think they're all great. I'm really into it, but I'm also a huge nerd. So anyway, Josh, we do have a couple brief listener questions. Let's get to those and then get this show on the rails home.
Let's do it. First, we have Paul Calico, PCalico84 via Twitter. He says, in all caps, and 3 exclamation marks. Kyle, exclamation marks, exclamation points.
I say exclamation point.
Okay.
Exclamation mark. Nope, I don't know. I think I use them both interchangeably.
Okay. I've always had it.
Exclamation mark. I think it's mark. I use mark. Final answer. I use mark. Exclamation mark.
He says, all caps, 3 exclamation mark points. Lands of Border. Where are y'all playing it at? Well, we're playing it on Xbox. I can answer that right away. I'm sorry, Paul. I know you're playing on PlayStation. Maybe someday we'll get some crossplay in the Lands of Border. What is your favorite manufacturer so far? Paul has found Malloween. It's malware that shoots either an electric beam or a fire beam that looks like Ghostbusters proton beams. Freaking awesome! I feel like he's probably further than us.
I think so too, because I'm at the point where I'm leveling up so fast, I'm just changing to whatever gun is now at my level.
I don't have a favorite manufacturer, which is always bothered my buddy who we've played with. I think like Tediador, and I always mispronounce him as one of them that I do like. I do like Malware.
Isn't it Malawan?
Is it Malawan? And he did it right, and I'm saying it wrong.
I think it. I could be wrong. You know Borderlands better than I do.
I thought I did. Listen, I'm just gonna Kyle answer the question.
Okay, I will answer the question. So yes, we're playing on Xbox. I don't have, like I said, I don't have a favorite gun yet. I do have this shotgun that I was using that was pretty sweet, but it wasn't anything special other than it has, the shotguns have like these cool shields that come up, which I think is pretty fun. That's kind of awesome. In general, I think that's cool. But also, kind of like Josh, I think it was an SMG that did electric damage and had a little blade on the front of it that gave ridiculous melee damage. So that's kind of been the gun I had been sticking with for the most part. It was a gun that, the one thing I will say I do enjoy about this version is they have that number in the upper left-hand corner that's like the value, not dollar value, but like value of the gun skill or something like that. And whatever gun is like the highest number of that is just the gun I equip.
That's fair.
So, because that was always one of the hardest parts I had when playing Borderlands was, is this gun better than this gun? I don't know. This thing is an 82. This thing's a 100. The 100 must be better, so that's the one we're using. And that is how I'm going to play the entire game. So hopefully that system does not fail me, because that is all I am doing.
I didn't even notice
Josh,
that.
Yeah, it's in the upper left of each gun, very upper left-hand corner of the box that they're in. There's a number there, and that just keeps going up.
I'll have to look. Here are and it is Malawan. I don't know why. What I was thinking of. Maybe Mass Effect. We have Jacobs, Atlas, Tediori, Hyperion, Dahl, Vladov, Torg, and, Malawan. If I'm remembering Borderlands 2, it was Vladov or Dahl, but I haven't really encountered too many versions, and if I have, I wasn't paying attention. So, Paul, I'll get back to you, and I'll let you know if I find that proton beam. Though, listen, I found out I can give Mad Moxie gun money again, and she gives a gun called the Crit. My goal is to get that gun. A funny part of the Crit, because it's based off of the Borderlands 2 D&D expansion. There is a 12% chance when you reload your gun, you drop the gun on the ground.
Okay.
So
can you pick
you
it back
have
up?
to pick it back up, but you have no gun in your hands when you drop it.
Okay. Well, you can switch to your other gun.
You could die very easily. Splig at Doblicious says over via Twitter, still like the idea of a top 5 Shelf of Shame from last week. Also, saw the new Everdell expansions. They look awesome. Haven't played the original, though. And then Kevin Austin kind of jumped in. They look cool. Still need to get the original. Great news. You can get all of them for the very high price of whatever it is. I think it's like $165 for all of them.
Yeah, for everything, I think, yeah.
I backed this. I actually canceled my pledge for the Ken Jennings Richard Garfield game.
Wow.
Because it's only 16 days on this Everdell campaign, and I'm poor, so I gotta make some sacrifice.
Wow. Yeah, no, I backed this one right away, too. I thought I was done getting games, and then I saw this, and I was like, darn it. And there's the Root RPG book now?
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, the game Root, there's an RPG book for it now. Yeah, it's on Kickstarter.
But I saw I can add Pearl Brook as an add-on.
Yes.
So I will be getting 3 expansions on this Kickstarter.
Very cool. And Splig, don't worry, the top 5 Shelf of Shame is definitely going to happen. No worries about that. That is on the list of 1 week here. Very soon we will be talking about that. As always, everyone, thank you so much for reaching out to us on the social media. We love to talk about the things that you bring up and your contributions to the show. They definitely make it better. And with that, we're going to get things wrapped up, but we're going to leave you with a well-rounded life recommendation. This is something we're into right now that isn't necessarily gaming related, but helping us live that balanced life that is so, so important. Josh, what is your recommendation for our dear listeners this week?
My recommendation is your recommendation. And
it's true!
I gave you crap about last week recommending something you had already recommended before, and I'm showing my true colors and doing the same thing.
Woohoo!
I recommend The Chef Show, Volume 2.
Indeed! So it's different because these episodes are new!
Foot, exit, mouth. Yeah, it's
but yes.
It's better, although I feel like it was probably filmed around the same time. I feel like, and maybe it's just my brain being broken, the production value is better, the writing is better, the content is better, but the volume 1 was great, so this is more of a great thing.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed. I'm 4 episodes in. I just watched the Skywalker Ranch episode, which was a nice surprise. I like not looking at.
Agreed.
Has their own garden, which is insane, and I just think it's getting better and better. And I really hope he continues making this show. If you haven't watched Chef Show Season 1, Volume 1, you need to do it. I promise you.
Yeah.
Even if you're not a fan of cooking shows, this has stuff for you. There's so much content in these bite-sized half-an-hour episodes that, like, you won't regret it. And when Volume 3, if Volume 3 ever comes out, be sure I'll be talking about it again because it's fantastic.
Right. I agree. I think my love for cooking shows is evident on this podcast. You know, I'm waiting supposedly soon-ish. We're supposed to get new episodes of Ugly Delicious.
Yeah.
But until then, I was very happy to see, I had heard that there was going to be another volume of this show. I'm very surprised at how quickly it came based off of when we got the first Season 1, Volume 1. And I think the fact that this is Season 1, Volume 2 indicates that hopefully we will be getting more of them in the future. But it's just a great show. It's a lot of fun. It's educational. It's funny. It's interesting. They just do a lot of cool stuff, and they cook a lot of really interesting food. So especially if you're someone who maybe has a more traditional, quote-unquote, to you palate, or maybe don't really push yourself or the limits of cuisine very often, this is going to be a really easy way for you to get introduced to cuisines from all around the world in a way that's pretty non-threatening. And also, some of them are very complicated, so you wouldn't be expected to make. But is a cool way. They kick off the season. Wow,
the most complicated dish.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. But it's so cool just to see them kind of work together to create that very cool dish and share stories. So, yeah, definitely recommend The Chef Show Season 1, Volume 2 on Netflix right now.
Yes.
Josh, what do you say we wrap this show up?
You betcha! Thanks for joining us, everyone. In addition to finding us on Twitter and Instagram at BoardWithVG, you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/BoardWithVG, so feel free to give us a 5-star rating over there. Also, if you want to communicate in the more long form, or you're just not feeling social media, please feel free to email us at boardwithvg@gmail.com. we tag our stuff with that hashtag #BoardWithVG. So please use that hashtag. Paul's killing it. He's letting us know everything that's going on. We love seeing it, Paul. Keep it up. Whatever podcast service you're listening to us on, we encourage you to give us a stellar rating. That is whether you're downloading us from the PSVG feed, the Dice Tower Network feed, or our very own standalone Board with Video Games feed. You can find me in the ether. Kyle, where can they find you?
So you can find me at all of the usual places: Twitter, Instagram, PlayStation Network, Xbox Live, Board Game Geek, all at Psychocross, CYCOCROSS. As always, if you have suggestions for future topics, be sure to reach out to us on social media, because we want to talk about what you want to hear about. And remember, everyone, whether it be board games or video games, never stop gaming.